Hello, I'm Rebecca the Maths Lady, here to help you become an expert primary maths teacher so that all your children love their maths teaching and become fluent and creative and confident with their maths. This is the 6th video on teaching maths to children who are 5 or 5 to 6 years old, which is English Year 1 or American Kindergarten. And in this video, we're going to focus on teaching children to work with the number square. Now, this video does assume that your children have already worked with the number line. So if you haven't seen the video on the number line, you need to watch that one first, and here's a link to it now. Great, you're still with me. Right, let's have a detailed look at this number square. Now, there are 2 of them here, and these are the 2 that are generally used in classrooms. This one has one in the top left-hand corner, and this one has one in the bottom left-hand corner. And you wouldn't believe how much discussion there is on maths education discussion forums as to which is the best square to use. I don't think it matters that much, but in general the debates do come out in favour of this one with one in the bottom left, simply because when you are adding 10, you go up the number square. And teachers seem to feedback that children find it quite helpful to think of adding and going up together rather than adding and going down. I think what matters more than which way you set up your number square is that in Year 1 you are consistent about how you set it up. Later on in school we'll want to play around with number squares and make sure children can adapt to them shown in different ways. But at this stage, consistency really helps children find their way around what's going on. And that's particularly important if you're thinking about getting a number square painted in the yard, which is a wonderful thing to do. And lots of schools have done it, and they've done great outdoor maths with that, and the children have enjoyed moving around. But it's really easy just to assume that a number square is a number square, and that if you ask someone to paint one, you will get what you want. And more often than that, you won't. You'll get one that's the other way up. Or you may even get one that goes across for your numbers to 10 and then back across the other way. And that just isn't going to reveal the patterns that really matter structurally for maths at this stage. So yes, get a number square in the yard if you can, or even just chalk one on, but make sure it is what you want it to be. Another thing to point out just before we get started, that the number square is really beyond the Year 1 curriculum. You don't have to do any of this. So why on earth have I put it in? Well, I've put it in for 2 reasons. One is that the number square is a really valuable structure to learn. And the other is that working with the number square is a really good way of consolidating Year 1 maths. Your children can do that maths again in a new and interesting way and come to understand it better. So in this episode we're going to cover introducing the number square, doing maths with the number square, and a listening to exercise, making sure you're listening to what's going on in the mind of the children. And this episode's exercise is going to be about snowballing. Okay, introducing your number square. The first thing is that you're going to need number squares, whether they're on worksheets that the children have got in front of them, or whether they're on the yard and the children are physically moving around, or whether they're on your interactive whiteboard. You need to find one that suits you, or more than one. And then you need very slowly and carefully to get children to explore the detail of the number square and become familiar with it. And there's a brilliant video that shows a teacher teaching this extremely well. I'm going to post a link to that video now, and that link goes to 3 minutes 30 into the video, which is where the work on the number square starts in that video. But if you don't have time to watch that, here's a quick explanation as to what the teacher does. She works on getting children to explore sequences of 3 numbers. Sequences where the numbers go up in ones, and the children look at those in detail, and then they try and find them in the number square like it's a word search, and they can highlight the 3 squares with those numbers in and see that they make a horizontal line. If numbers go up in ones, you're going to get a pattern like this. And then she also explores numbers that go up in tens, sets of numbers like this one. And when the children look for those in detail, that they see that they create columns of numbers. And that's a wonderful way of getting children first to pay attention to the number square. And then once children have become familiar with the number square, we can do most of the year one work on core number with it. So we can certainly count up and down in ones, touching the numbers, finding our way around the squares. We can ask children to find a number that we name or show on the big bead bar. And we can point to a number and ask children to name it or show it on the big bead bar. We can look for the confusion, the classic confusion in year one between 18 and 80. Can they clearly hear that and know the difference? And you can explore one or two more or less than any number. And you can notate what you're doing there with additions and subtractions. And you can do these with physical movements of the children if they're in pairs and you're doing two more than a number. Every child has to stand on a square and the next child, who's their partner, has to move to the square that's two more. You see the patterns like that, and they explore going over the end of a line as well. And you can explore 10 more than in a similar way. So if we start on 57, the next child goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and ends up there. And if you've got several pairs of children doing this, they'll spot the pattern, having discovered it in a different way. That's really nice and age appropriate. And this is where the number square really comes into its own, because it starts to show things that the children don't see with other apparatus. And in particular, for counting in twos, you should start to see this pattern. And for counting in fives, you should see this pattern. And for counting in tens, obviously, you'll just get a single stripe. And that's going to be really, really important for the children learning their 2, 5 and 10 times tables next year. It's a key reason why we're doing this now, because those patterns are going to provide some really important support and foundations for their work on their tables next year. And when that video is done, I'll post a link to it. So in all of these videos, I'm giving you a tip to help you listen to the maths in the world of the child rather than for the maths that you're already expecting to hear from them. And today's tip is snowballing. Now, there are quite a few definitions of snowballing, but in year one, it's really about getting the children to talk to each other, usually in pairs, before they feed back to you. And it's really important to get that culture going, because children who are only 5 are hopeless at remembering what it is that they wanted to say. So they may have a great idea, but if you take turns around the class to listen to one child at a time, how often have they completely forgotten what it is that they wanted to say by the time you get to them? So every child has a talk partner, and when you ask them for their suggestions on how some maths should be done, they talk to their talk partner first to ensure that every child gets the chance to talk, and you're listening and observing and picking up on interesting things they say, and then you can pull those out in a class conversation afterwards. If you want to take it to a next level, it's about making every child think in their own head and compose their thoughts before they talk to their talk partner. Big challenge for children who are so young. But one of the reasons I put it in here is that there's a wonderful example in the video that I linked to earlier of talk partner work. Beautifully done to prove that it can be done. It's often nice to watch another teacher. And it really enhances children's learning if they've had the chance to articulate their own thoughts about maths. So is it time to put aside some time with your year one team, even if that team is just you and your TA, to watch one or more of these videos together and really talk about what it means for you and your teaching and what you're trying to do with your children? Children really benefit from chatting in pairs, and teachers do too. I'll be back next Thursday afternoon with a video about working with individual objects in year one. and I'll be introducing you to my fabulous penguins. Usual request, please comment on these posts, especially if you've got questions or problems with your maths teaching. I want to know. And the best place to comment is on YouTube or in the Expert Primary Maths Teacher Planning Facebook group. So until next Thursday, I hope you love your maths teaching. Bye for now.